everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and right there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
It's
you
been
too.
A fantastic vacation, time off, doing the things that we need to do to be healthy. And today we are starting our big month of talk about money. Money. And ADHD. Before we get into that, you're going to head over to takecontroladhd.com and get to know us a little bit better, listen to the show on the website, subscribe to the mailing list, or grab the link to jump right over to iTunes and subscribe to the show for free so you don't miss an episode. And as always, we appreciate your kind reviews and 5-star reviews over at iTunes. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at TakeControlADHD and call us. Leave us a voicemail at 503-664-4ADD. Get your voice, your thoughts, your questions on the show. And we do have some voicemails that have been stacking up, and so we'll be getting to those over the coming weeks as we do more shows that are related to that follow-up. So stay tuned. If you've left us a voicemail or a message, trust me, we'll get to it.
Absolutely.
Maybe just not right away. I do have one brief bit of follow-up that I think is so good that I've been holding it for 2 weeks. That I got from Kevin Cummings, who wrote to me talking about a Gmail tip that I think is so good everybody needs to know it.
All right.
Are you ready
Tell
for this?
us.
All right.
I am.
This is a trick in Gmail, and I'm pretty sure in other services as well, but you need to check with your provider. But Gmail does this, and it's wonderful. Did you know, Kevin writes, that Gmail allows you to add to your email address, and it will still get to you? If you use the plus sign at the end of your name, you can add more characters. For example, if my email is sample@gmail.com, I can use sample plus sign bills at gmail.com to flag all my incoming bills so that I can apply a filter. Love the show, he says. Nice.
Love the. Well, thank you, Kevin.
Do you get what I'm saying here? Do you get what Kevin is saying here? This is so good because it is an on-the-fly filter that you can add to your email address when you go into, say, your gas company website and they say, "What's your email address?" You can say, "My name plus sign name of gas company." In our case, who's my gas company? Northwest Natural. So I could say, Pete plus NW Natural at gmail.com. It's not my address, but whatever. And I could then set up a filter using the tip we talked about last time to actually filter only Northwest Natural messages into a special bucket.
I like
label.
it.
It is really, really
It's a great way to filter it,
You can do that on the fly. You don't need to set anything up. You just, as you are registering, there's nothing to do but add that plus sign. It is a great tip, and I'm so grateful for Kevin to write that in. That is great.
I love it. And I was just thinking of something kind of snarky. So, when they always ask you, like you're at a store and they're like, "Can I get your email?" And I always say, "No, you can't." But it would be funny to this is not funny. I was going to say, you could put like Nikki plus junk at gmail.com, but that's not nice.
Nikki plus, I hate your email at gmail.com.
I would not do that.
No, it's been better. Nikki plus, I will never read this.
I will never read this. It will be trashed.
That's so mean. Direct to trash at gmail.com.
Direct plus direct trash.
Oh, that's
awful. Not nice. Okay. Moving on.
All right, so we are going to talk about money and ADHD today. First of all, can you just start tell us about why this has become an important topic for you?
I would love to.
Yes.
This all started, money is definitely an issue that clients and I have talked about in the past. Not every client, but there's been a couple of clients that, this is a stress to them. But where it really started was last year when I was going through the ADD Coaching Academy. I had to do a final project. And the final project had to be something to do with ADHD, but not necessarily something that we covered in class. And so I chose to do money or money management and ADHD. And I learned all kinds of fascinating things, and that was really the idea. I mean, that's how this got kind of stirred. Is I thought, well, gosh, my report itself is 4 good episodes of the podcast. So.
Is this topic? I mean, is this something that because honestly, until we started planning this series, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I never realized how much ADHD behaviors were affecting my money management. I never even made the connection. I never thought about it. Really? I'm so embarrassed to say this. It's only been since we started bringing this up. I think probably we talked about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that I started really thinking about how does this work for me? What's my relationship like to money as a result of how my brain works? And I'd never made the connection.
Well, it's interesting. And you're probably not the only one that's never made that connection. Because you kind of think of your ADHD affecting time and organization.
And particularly productivity.
And not necessarily, decisions around money. But, it's interesting because I've got some statistics to share.
I want to hear them.
Okay. So one of the books that I checked out when I was doing my report is called ADD and Your Money. And it is written by Stephanie Sarkis. And I apologize if I did not get the name right. I'm not good at names. I'm just going to admit that right now. So Stephanie Sarkis, PhD. And so she wrote this book, and it starts off with some statistics. And so just to give you an idea, people with ADHD have a greater amount of debt, more difficulty paying their bills, and less money saved up than people without ADHD. Now, if we look at that statistic, it makes sense. For someone like me who has studied ADHD with coaching, the greater amount of debt comes from the impulsiveness or the impulse shopping.
Right.
And so it's the, not really thinking through, I really just want this, and so I'm going to buy it. And so that kind of is a reason that the debt comes. And we're going to talk about some strategies, down or later, in a couple weeks about how to kind of curve that spending. More difficulty paying their bills. It's not necessarily that they don't have the money. It's because they forget about the bills.
Yeah, right. They lose it. They don't know how to manage their paper. The bills just get tossed and stacked and
Yeah.
missed.
So again, these executive functions that we've talked about in the past are really getting in the way of managing money. We're forgetting, we're not organizing. Maybe we're starting, to pay the bill, but we don't send it off. I mean, how many people out there, and I'm sure people are shaking their heads. Yeah, I paid that bill. Mm-hmm. It just still happens to be in my car with the stamp on it even. Right. So all of these things can kind of happen. Unfortunately, people with ADHD have lower incomes than those without ADHD, even when they have a similar education level. This is from Barkley, Murphy, and Fisher in 2008. I'm not exactly sure how they came up with that statistic, but that's what they're saying. People with ADHD also miss more days of work due to unofficial absences.
Absolutely can see this.
Yes, absolutely. People with ADHD are more likely to take risks that lead to a loss of money.
We're talking like gambling? Or
betting, probably.
Probably making investment decisions.
Investments. Yeah. Somebody like I know my husband and his cousin, they love talking about the stock market and what's hot and everything. And so you can imagine if you don't have that pause button in front of you, you get really excited and you're just I'm going to buy this stock, without really thinking what that could really mean. In my class, I learned that people with ADHD are 2/3 more likely to be fired from jobs, 3 times more likely to impulsively quit jobs, and 50% more likely to have changed jobs in a given period. Now, these statistics clearly show that there is a challenge around money, and kind of answers that question that you were saying, like, oh my gosh, this really has a connection. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, as some people know, the consequences can be, very, very severe.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to this idea of how, these statistics and observations are sort of observations on the outcomes. But for me, what it really comes down to is how I think about money. Can we talk about some of these kind of belief systems that go into impacting ADHD and money?
Yes, absolutely. And this is when I was doing my project, when I was in coaching school, like, it's kind of funny to say that, but when I was in coaching school, we talk about beliefs. We talk about limiting beliefs, because that's a lot of what gets in people's way when they're trying to move forward is they believe a certain thing, something that they've either been told or they've just been telling themselves. And so some limiting beliefs around money could be that you feel like you've never been good with money, therefore I'm never going to be good with money. Mm-hmm. I can't stick to a budget. As soon as you hear as soon as you hear yourself saying I can't, that is the time to really evaluate what it is that you're saying, because most likely it's a limiting belief.
You know, this is so big. I have to jump in because I have the thing I've been thinking about. I'm sure smarter people than me have come up with a better way to frame this. But the thing for me is the halo of negativity. Because I think that those who are struggling with ADHD, speaking for myself, when I say things like I really struggle with managing time and attention. I really struggle with focus on the things I want to focus. I struggle with, or I can't manage my calendar, my time, right? These things that I've had to really fight to get a hold of over the last, 5-6 years. That there is a halo effect to that kind of language, and it makes it so much easier to say I can't keep up with the bills, I can't manage my money, I'm terrible with money, when I'm already accustomed to saying I'm terrible with time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm terrible. And then from there, it's like I'm terrible with relationships. I don't focus on making the commitments or living up to the commitments to my friends and my spouse. Like that halo of negativity is huge for me.
Well, and it's a domino effect because, like you said, and then it starts to spill into all areas of your life, and then it really stops you. It really becomes a roadblock of moving forward. Because if we can't get past, the I can't to wow, but what if you could?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would that open up for you if you could? And so let's just explore that possibility, of what that would look like, and trying to shift that negative to positive. And that's what we do in coaching is, I ask those questions, what if you could? What if you were good with money? How would that change? And something else that I thought was really interesting in the book, ADD and Your Money, is she talks about how, the way you were raised can have a lot to do with your own value that you put towards money, right? So if you grew up with a lot of money in your childhood, you probably didn't have to worry about it. So maybe you don't have the same value to it as somebody who struggled and saw their parents work 6 jobs and they didn't get everything that they wanted. They're going to hold different values. And so one of the things that I'll put on my blog is there's this exercise, and it comes straight from ADD and Your Money. So, definitely check out her book 'cause it's a good one. But there's these questions of trying to kind of dig in your past a little bit to kind of figure out what your values are around money. And that can also help you move forward, in what you want to do with your goals, and where you want to see yourself, whether it's getting out of debt or you want to save for retirement or whatever. Just having a better understanding of what you think about it can make a big, huge difference.
Well, and I think whether or not you're struggling with ADHD, it's very likely that you didn't have a great education on money. Because it's not something that we as people are good at teaching our kids, right?
Yeah. And if you also find, ADHD is hereditary. So absolutely. I mean, the likelihood of your mom or dad having ADHD, but maybe not knowing that they had it, could make a difference. Because then, the money management, or they never spent the time to teach the kids how to deal with a budget, or all kinds of things could happen there. Absolutely.
So where do you go from there? And I mean, let's say we're inviting people to go to the blog to go through this checklist. And I think there are some great, questions on there that help you think about your history with money and your money belief systems. Where do you go from there to help people in a more practical kind of place?
I would say that then at this point, we need to have a little bit more clarity of what it is you're trying to achieve. What is that financial goal? What are your, not just the main goal of, I want better money management. Well, what does that mean? And so I think that the next step is really trying to figure out what it is that you want. And like I said, is it paying off debt? Is it paying off your house? Is it saving for college for your children? And maybe it's all of those things. But that's what we need to figure out is what are your priorities? What would you like? And you can kind of simply do that with just a few questions of, what is it that I need to do here? What do I want? What do I want to feel like, at the end of 10 years? Or, I know that there's going to be some financial advisors that will go short term, long term, very long term. And next week,
I was going to say that none of those things really, all of those things, I should say, address a core problem with ADHD behavior cycles, which is they allow you to separate this idea of the here and now wants, desires, from the fact that you've never probably really thought about what money management is, right? Yeah. Money management day to day is, oh my goodness, I really want that Apple Watch. I'm going to go get it. Without any attention paid to, at 65, I'm going to need to really have a retirement plan that's nailed down.
Right, right.
And I'm going to have to start thinking about that now because that's so hard to do. Money management is not just about here and now expenses. And I think that's what, having that clarity, it's a good way to kind of frame it, is just to really look at, separating here and now from long term, from
the future.
Yeah.
And I would really highly suggest, enlisting help, get help, whether that is a financial advisor or an accountant, or even if it's somebody that who you trust, and you think they're good with their money. And I say you think, because sometimes people pretend like they're good with their money and they're really not. I would suggest that you get some help if you are struggling in trying to figure out what this clarity means to you. Financial advisors can be great for this. Accountants can be great for this. Even somebody that that you think, seems like they're managing their money pretty well. Ask some questions and get an idea of how they do things. I know, Pete, you have a great way of managing your bills. We've talked about it on the show. And I'm going to bring that up to you, or ask you to talk about that again in a different show in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But I think it's good to kind of figure out who is around you and what kind of support can you get, because you don't have to do this by yourself. Because that's when it becomes really overwhelming. You go and you buy a book, how to set a budget or how to get your money in order, and it's just confusing. Mm-hmm.
Because you're not working with your data.
Right.
You're working with you've got to have that, particularly with money. I think it's important to just be able to look at your numbers and have somebody with you that you trust that can look at your numbers. I'll tell you, this is one of the reasons this whole clarity discussion is such an impact on me, is because it puts such, it's like putting a puzzle together of my youth. Mm-hmm. I am one of the many, 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 many people in this country who racked up a ton of credit card debt when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not living with my folks. I'm living on my own, and suddenly these credit card offers start coming, and
they make it so
easy, instant qualification and approval, and suddenly I have 5 or 6 credit cards in my wallet that are getting just maxed out over the course of a couple of years. I have thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, and I had no thought to the future as I was, signing up for those cards. No thought to planning what I was going to do when I got out of college and had, a job that wasn't paying me enough to live and make minimum payments on that. No thought to any of that stuff, and so much of that is due to how my brain worked. And I did not have I had no clue. I had no clue.
Yeah, yeah.
It took years. I had to move out of the country to pay off my credit card debt. It was big sacrifices to make that work. And so I think this is so important.
Well, and it's interesting because this also brings up a memory that I had with my husband before we were married. We were just dating, because usually you date before you get married. And
I could have sworn you guys were arranged.
No, we weren't. But when this goes back, my story goes back to kind of the value that you put around money and how you grow up, because we were dating. He got a bonus from his job and he immediately invested it. He didn't spend a dime He took the check and he invested it. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, really? You worked hard for that. You should like go buy yourself something, you know? And so it was just a really interesting conversation of the value that two different people can put on money.
You know, yeah, and you know, for a guy who also, as we've talked about, displays some ADHD qualities.
Yes,
money management has never been a problem for that dude.
No, and it is
on the ball.
He's on the ball, and it is definitely because of the way he's grown up.
Yeah.
It is how he was raised. His grandparents lived in the Depression, and so they were extremely thrifty and frugal. And you know, his parents are the same way. I would say that each generation has gotten a little bit more relaxed. But yeah, it never even crossed his mind to spend that money. Where for me, I was like, that's gone before I even got it.
Right.
Yeah. So, but you know, this is also a really important topic, because if you look at why people get divorced, I think one of the number one reasons is because of finances. So this is important. You know, regardless if you have ADHD or not, I think it's a great way to have more insight of what you believe. And especially if you're getting married or you are married and you're, you know, doing finances together with someone, it makes a big deal. What I want to leave people with, because I know we kind of talked again, just kind of leaving, with some questions around clarity. Take some time to think about, you know, what is that picture of financial freedom for you? What would that give you? What's getting in the way right now of that, achieving that freedom? What resources do you need to help you with your goals? And if you can, what is that first step? Maybe it is calling a professional. Maybe it is, you know, figuring out exactly how much debt you have. I don't know what that is, but I think that sometimes can be a really good starting point. Next week, we'll talk about some specific strategies around money management, but this week is definitely about just getting a better understanding of your values and what you think about it. And then we'll move forward.
Outstanding.
Yes, good stuff.
Great stuff. So thank you all for tuning in, downloading, listening to this episode. You know, we've got, as Nikki said, we've got several more weeks of this stuff, and it's really important. So, you know, even if you think you have your head around your money, just stop and be reflective and really think about how you manage your bills, how you manage your finances and your long-term plan, and see if you can uncover some ways you could improve too. We all could use it. So there we go. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we will catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.